Today we got a 2009 Toyota Corolla. We're going to be doing a front driver's side CV axle replacement. Got the wheel off already, got it jacked up in the air. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bolt out right here, and then I'm going to take out the lower one down here, and that's going to allow me to remove this caliper. And I'm going to take one of my hangers and I'm going to put it up here on one of the springs to get it out of the way. Next thing I'm going to do after that is go ahead and remove the hub nut so that we can get the axle kind of tapped out of the hub assembly here. Got to have a 12.30 or a 32 millimeter for this one. The regular 6-point hub sockets will not work on this. It's one of those gotchas that they do from the manufacturer because they don't want you working on your own stuff. But luckily we got the tools. Okay, so we got the caliper off. It's going to be those bolts right there. They are going to be 17 millimeter. And I went on ahead and hung the caliper up right there. Then I took the hub nut off. It is in fact a 30 millimeter 12-point hub nut socket. Fits right over it. And the good old earthquake from Harbor Freight was able to bust all that off with no problems. Then, right there in the center of the axle, took my old snap-on punch / pry bar, gave it a good whack or two with the 3-pound hammer, and it pushed right through. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove the wiring here on the wheel speed sensor, and then I'm going to remove these two nuts and bolts so that the knuckle will slide out this way and allow me to remove the axle from this end. Then we're going to have to get back in here and pop that out of the transmission with a pry bar or something. Okay, so we went ahead and took these two bolts out using a 22 millimeter wrench and socket. I have the steering wheel turned all the way to the left from the start because that enables you to get to the caliper bolts easier. And so because of that, I put my impact up here on this side, and I put the wrench over here on the back side. Got both of those loose. Also got the wheel speed sensor disconnected. It's going to bolt in right down here. I did spray it down with some penetrating oil just in case, but it actually came out really easy for me. And so now I'm going to give this just a couple light taps, and it should pop out of there. And then we can start popping it out on the transmission side. So I got the axle off, went ahead and sprayed it down with a little brake cleaner. So right before you go ahead and try to take off the inside part, this is roughly what it should look like. And yeah, these kind of jobs are not fun. You get grease all over you. Look at all that grease on the tie rod end just thrown up there from this axle that's been leaking. Always get grease all over you on an axle job. Now we're up under the vehicle. Here's the other end of the axle. We're following it back. The subframe is quite in the way, as well as the transmission. So I'm not quite sure if we're going to be able to get in there with a pry bar, but we're sure going to try our best. I'm going to try to do that, and if it works, I'll let you know, and if I try something else, then I'll show you what I end up doing. I don't think I showed these two off in the toolbox tour video that I did, so I figured I'll show those now because I'm actually about to use this. Got the slide hammer, and I'm going to try to use this tool, which does not come with it. I'm going to slide this behind the axle and slide hammer it out of there. This also doesn't come with it, but this comes in handy when you're using the slide hammer, because one of these bolts, I don't think it's this one of them fits through here. I think it's no, that's the original one. It's this one, and you can use it on the slide hammer and grab onto stuff. I like using that. And then this other one is just a inner tie rod end tool. Helps you get the inner tie rod ends off. Just a big long socket and a couple little deals to connect it on there. And I think I forgot to show these because they were behind the toolbox and in between the seat and the toolbox. But I'm gonna go ahead and try to use this to get that axle out because it's pretty tight space in there and I don't really know what other way I'm gonna be able to get that out. So I'm gonna get it out real quick with this. Okay, so that did end up working. I got it in there, kind of cocked at an angle a little bit. You can't even see it from there. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. You can kind of see how I got it in there. I had to end up turning the strut all the way the other way, as if the steering wheel was turned to the right to get it to do this. Now that we got it back there, give it a couple yanks, it'll come right on out of there. This tool is amazing. The only thing is, I wish it was a little longer. I might want to eventually get me some kind of extension for it, but we got that axle out of there, and luckily a bunch of transmission fluid didn't spill out because I did not put a pan under there. And now we're just going to reverse that process, go ahead and put the new one in. Alright, go ahead and compare the new axle with the old one. Looks pretty much the same to me. Then you go ahead and you put the axle into that hole there until this little C-clip inside that groove there. They both got one. Until that C-clip goes past a certain point, and this will essentially bottom out inside of that hole there. And that's when you know you've got it totally connected. Okay, so also before you put this in, it doesn't hurt. You don't necessarily have to, but it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of grease on these splines of the new one. It helps push it in a little bit more. So I've got the axle pushed all the way into the transmission, and then I went ahead and routed it back through the hub. I've got this on hand tight, and it looks like they sent us with a, or the new one rather, has a nut that is a 6-point, so we're gonna have to get a different socket out to tighten that up. Went ahead and put these bolts back in hand tight as well. And then I also fully tightened the wheel speed sensor. It helps for me anyway. I used a 10mm socket with a long extension. So now I'm going to go ahead and snug all these up and get the caliper back in place and put those bolts on. Okay, so we got the caliper back on, both bolts tightened. And now's a good time to go ahead and make sure that you tightened everything that you took off. Just run down the list. In my case, wheel speed sensor, strut to knuckle bolts, hub nut, caliper bolts, both of them. Make sure you tighten everything that you take off when you're doing a brakes or suspension job. I know that sounds obvious, but one bolt left loose could spell disaster for your customer and you. Also, this hub nut, the new one, ended up being a 32mm 6-point socket. If you're buying the part from the dealership or something, then it's probably going to be the same, but I've got an import direct part number TO8234. If you have that one, you may also need a 32mm 6-point socket to tighten this up. So next thing we're going to do is go ahead and put the wheel back on, torque the lug nuts to 76 to 80 foot-pounds, and then we'll go ahead and take it around the parking lot and make sure everything's good to go. Another thing, when you're working with many Toyotas, they're going to have a lug nut similar to this one. This part here is supposed to go inside the hole in the wheel before you tighten it up. You need to basically align all of the lug nuts with the holes behind them in the wheel. If you do not, and try to tighten it up, you'll end up with a wallard spot like this right here that I'm pointing to. That's not going to be good for your wheels over the long term. So definitely make sure that these lug nuts are lined up properly, where that back part of the nut goes through the hole, before you tighten them up. Once you've got to this point, you can go ahead and drive the vehicle, and then you can give yourself a pat on the back because you completed the job. If you got value from this video, please like, comment, and subscribe because there's going to be a whole lot more of these coming. Thank you.